I look back and it was antiquated, but I cannot argue with the results. And although Tom Brady said, yes, it's antiquated, but the question is, how do you argue with the results? And remember, everybody used to say, they can't be possibly having fun over there. It's so methodical, it's so this and so that. And Tom Brady said, winning is fun, which goes to now, he just blew up 100 years of sports. Winning cures all. Winning masks all. It could not mask his disappointment that he was starting to have for Coach Belichick. And after a while, Skip, it says, you know, Mr. Kraft knew he was a jerk, but he was a jerk that was winning Lombardis. Coach Tom Brady knew he was a jerk and a butthole also, but he was helping me win MVPs and go down, and people regard me as a GOAT player. So he was willing. It wasn't until, Skip, everybody's like, it wasn't until when his time came due to have to stand in front of Coach Belichick, Coach Belichick said, bye, that everybody's like, oh my goodness, he could do that to Tom Brady? Yep.
Because he believes he can win with anybody.
Yes.
They're cogs in his system.
Even Tom was treated as a cog.
As a cog. He was never treated. And when Tom screwed up, he would hear about it in film sessions with the team.
Right.
He would be called out by Bill in front of the team. Practice would get stopped when Tom misfired or made the wrong call or decision.
Yeah.
Brady. You call him Brady.
Brady.
What are you thinking? What are you doing? Show him up in front of the team, which also sends a message to everybody. Nobody's the same. I'll treat you all the same way because you're all disposable to me because I'm the genius behind this operation, right? Okay, so now we get all the way to that 2017 season Super Bowl, and we finally hear a plausible explanation for why Malcolm Butler was benched for the whole game. The guy who played the most defensive snaps during the regular season played 0 defensive snaps in the Super Bowl, and I've told you 100 times on this show, I still haven't heard any explanation because Bill just danced around it. What happened? Obviously, Brady was furious about it afterward and actually commented on a post, remember, the next day?
Yeah, so maybe Twitter, might have been IG or something.
Like,
but
I love you, Malcolm.
He liked the post, yes.
Remember that? Okay, so now we have an explanation, and we'll have a direct hit on this later in the show.
Okay.
But we now know that, according to the book, that Matt Patricia got into it, again, the defensive coordinator at the time, who went on to be an unsuccessful head coach at Detroit, Coach Pencil, I called him, but he's Bill's boy. He's like the right-hand man.
One of 2 men that's ever left and been allowed to come back. He and Josh McDaniels.
And he got into it with Malcolm Butler. I don't know the extent of getting into it. I don't know what words were exchanged. I don't know if they cursed each other out or Malcolm cursed him out. I don't know. But these things, these episodes, these conflicts happen every day on every NFL practice field. They just happen. You know it, and I know. You see it in Hard Knocks, like every episode, they're getting after each other for whatever. It's like heat of practice battle, right?
I've seen coaches and players almost come to blows.
Well, exactly. And I doubt,
arguing, and you go to the Super Bowl?
And now you're going to bench this guy for the whole Super Bowl? And I told you after the Super Bowl, it felt a little sabotagey to me because Brady was getting too much credit. So what was the outcome, in Robert Kraft's view, of the Super Bowl? Wait a second. Our defense with no Malcolm Butler allowed Nick Foles to become the MVP by scoring 41 points in a Super Bowl, while Tom threw up for a playoff record, not a Super Bowl, an all-time playoff record, 505 yards. We put up 33, and we lost by 8 points. Kraft had to be incensed. Brady had to be completely over the edge.
Yes.
That was when Brady came out and did the Q&A with Jim Gray at the Santa Monica. What was it? It was an appearance that he made at a conference, right? And remember what he was saying, that, you know, I plead the fifth about my happiness.
Do you feel appreciated sometimes?
Sometimes, okay. So here's the other big takeaway from this book that is shocking to me. They came back the next year in 2018 when Tom didn't want to play there anymore, and Tom rose above all that and led that team into the AFC Championship game at my homeboy. And remember what happened in overtime? Again, Patrick didn't get the ball. Tom got the ball. And Tom converts 3 straight 3rd and 10s in the cold and the wind in Kansas City. 1 to Edelman, 2 to Gronk. They pull it off. They go right down the field and score a touchdown, which ended the game. And they go to the Super Bowl. Tom didn't play very well, but he never plays very well against that Ram defense, right? And Jared Goff played worse, and I give Bill credit for his defensive game plan, but the quarterback on the other side was about to eventually not be the quarterback because they just didn't love him at all.
Right.
So Tom did what he always does. He had a game-winning drive in the middle of the fourth quarter, and they won a Super Bowl in spite of all this chaos that was swirling behind closed doors in New England. That's shockingly great to me.
Yeah, and that just goes to show you that Tom was willing to put that aside and do what's best for the best interest of the team and try to win a game, even though I'm not so sure. I don't want to use the word despise, but I think I would like to say he had a strong disliking for his head coach. And I think the guy above both of those guys, Mr. Kraft, put all that aside. He likes stacking those Lombardis. Every year you see his plane, the plane that they fly on, Skip, it got 6 Lombardis on the tail.
Yep.
So he likes that. So I'm willing to put that aside. I know the guy's a jerk. I know a guy, he's hard to play for. Hell, it's hard for me. And he is up under me.
Yep.
But I'm going to put that aside. Coach Belichick always felt, Skip, it was him. Malcolm Butler is a cog because you remember when he inserted him in the game in that Super Bowl that they came back and beat Seattle, Skip?
Yeah.
Malcolm Butler wasn't a starter. He was an undrafted free agent. But the guy that, I forget his name, but he was getting toasted. He inserted him. Malcolm Butler makes the play. He says, see, I can do anything. He started to feel, he's been feeling himself. He said, you know what, Malcolm Butler? You going to talk to the DC like this here? We're going to sit you down. We so good, we going to win anyway.
That is correct.
And that, because, Skip, it would not even been a story. It would have been a little footnote. But because you lost, people like, well, hold on. How did the guy that played the most defensive snaps all year not even get a snap on defense? He was relegated to 2 or 3 plays on special teams.
Yep.
How is that possible? He had to answer those questions where had they won, it would have been Coach Belichick. He benched to start a guy that, so that's the way he views it.
So this all reminded me of a book I did write about the 1995 Dallas Cowboys, who won the Super Bowl in spite of each other. It was chaos behind closed doors. It was Troy Aikman not speaking to Barry Switzer, then the head coach, from December 4th all the way through the Super Bowl. They would not speak to each other, and they won in spite of themselves because they were by far the best team. It was Deion and Michael and Emmett. You know, Deion had come over from San Francisco. They were just too great. And they wound up just overwhelming Pittsburgh in the Super Bowl because it was Neil O'Donnell at quarterback and Larry Brown ended up being the MVP. Okay, well, that was different because by 2018, the cupboard's starting to get bare because Belichick is getting exposed as a team builder. I do not doubt his abilities as a defensive coordinator, a defensive mind, right at the top of the list. I'll give you all-time greatest defensive mind. You can go all the way back to the 2001 Super Bowl against the greatest show on turf. I give you that. But on talent level, he's slowly but surely letting it just slip away because he's saying, I'm so smart. I am so great. My aura is so powerful. It doesn't matter who my players are. I'll do it I'll just figure it out. My genius will prevail. No, it won't. At some point, if you lose that quarterback who was your buffer in the locker room, who kept everybody to a low roar, like everybody was upset with a lot of things Bill Belichick did, but Tom would say, no, just can it. Just keep it to yourself because we can win in spite of him. Right?
Skip. It's kind of like Phil Jackson. Well, Phil had Scotty and Michael. He had Shaq and Kobe. But when he was entrusted to put the Knicks together, what did he do?
Fair enough.
You see, Skip, you got that, Skip. If you got a guy like that, it's just like Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay. And we don't think Mike McCarthy is Lombardi or anything in between. But when you have a guy like that, you have a Peyton Manning, you have one of these historically transcendent quarterbacks, he can overcome a lot. And that's what Coach Belichick relied on. He was able to treat everybody else like that because he treated Tom like that. And people are like, well, if Tom don't say nothing, Skip, how can I say something? Everybody talks about when they would go in there try to get their contract. He said, well, we pay Tom this. We can't pay you more than Tom.
That is correct. And there's also the anecdote that Tom finally threw up his hands and said, I keep taking team discounts.
Thank you.
You know, hometown discounts. And yet I have no input into how the team is being built. And it's the Aaron Rodgers dilemma, but they gave Aaron, they tossed him some bones. Randall Cobb, we'll let you do this. You know, we'll give you some of the play calling, whatever. No, not there.
Tom was like, wait a minute. I'm playing for pennies on the dollars, and you treat me like this?
That's what happened.
Hold on, wait a minute. What's wrong with this picture?
Okay. And finally, quick comment from you. There's the anecdote about 2016. Donald Trump at a rally as he was campaigning for president read a campaign letter, a letter of support written by Bill Belichick.
Yep.
A number of players in the locker room did not love it. So Bill addressed it, but didn't do so convincingly in the locker room. And there was still some real misgiving about, wait a second, he did that for him?
Correct.
Right?
I'm not surprised at all, Skip, because let me tell you something how this thing works. You're not just writing a letter for somebody. I'm not just going to take my time and write a letter for someone that's not Daryl McCormick, that's somebody that's not Keith Burns, or a very, very close friend. So for him to, in that setting, and the guy read it, come on. And them guys looking at you say, he didn't explain it because, like you said, Skip, I don't really know how much. They believe, like, when he's telling them, if we do this, we can win the game. But I don't know how much else comes out of his mouth that they believe. I believe very little, because Tom says, I only say 10% of what I'm actually thinking. Well, Coach Belichick says 0.
0, I would agree. It's a big, fat 0%.
Big fat 0. So, Skip, for me, the reason why I said it was a 1, and I think you understand, you know who Coach Belichick is because you've been saying it for the longest. He got scoundrel in him. He got scoundrel. Maybe people didn't know he was this big of a scoundrel, but given his history, I got 20 years body of work that says, okay, yeah, that's him. That's him.